Hi, I'm Jessica Russo Scherr, and today I'm going to show you how to stretch a canvas and prime it. I will show you the techniques on how to stretch a canvas that's already been painted, a canvas that is plain raw, and how to prime that canvas once you have it stretched.
There's lots of reasons why you want to stretch your own canvas. One, you have a lot more control over the size and materials that you use, the quality of the materials, and, well, it's a lot cheaper.
Some of the materials you will need are stretcher strips, perhaps a crossbar if your painting is large enough, a staple gun, staples, perhaps a ruler, and some canvas. Oh, and gesso.
So I'm using stretcher strips to build my frame, but I also sometimes build my frame out of wood. You need your stretcher strips. I'm doing mine 100 by 130. And if it's a large canvas, you need a cross brace. You'll also get these little corners. So stretcher strips come with this little groove on one side and flat on the other. You want to make sure that when you put together your stretcher strips, all the grooves are facing the same direction. The corners have little wooden notches in it, and you just wiggle the pieces together till you get the corners to align. This is the trickiest bit because you have to sort of push from one side and then the other so it comes out perfectly aligned on the corner. Don't push them all the way in until you have all of your corners done because you're going to need to adjust. If you're working on a large canvas, you're going to need one or possibly two cross braces, and you can't put in your last stretcher strip until you pop in that cross brace. There's usually a notch in the middle of your stretchers for this. Once all four pieces and any cross pieces are in, now you can really sort of work on adjusting the corners. If it's a large canvas, I suggest using your body weight to push down on the canvas stretcher strips to try to get the angles aligned. Keep in mind, see how I'm rotating it from side to side because I want them to be equally pushed in, and if you push just down on one side, one stretcher strip will push out further than the other. Double check that your corners are aligned. It's super important that you make sure your canvas is perfectly square. That means that all of the corners are at right angles. And you can do that in a number of different ways. You can measure the diagonals from one corner to another and make sure that they are the same. My table has a perfect 90-degree angle, so I can put the canvas up along the side and see if it's out of square at all. If it is, I can then take it off of the table and push it down, or even if it's a little tight, I can use a hammer to make sure that it is adjusted. Look for spaces where you could push the canvas into square. I have a huge window frame in my studio and I can push it into those corners. Sometimes door frames work very well for this. Just rotate the canvas around so you make sure that it is perfectly square. Once you have it all square, you can put those little corner wedges into the spaces, and that will just help it maintain its squareness. You could also put a quick staple in each of the corners if you're afraid that it's going to get out of square. Now we need our staple gun and our staples.
I'm going to show you how to stretch a canvas that's already painted, raw canvas, and how to prime a canvas. Let's start with the canvas that's already been painted. I first double check the size of my stretcher strips and make sure everything aligns, and then I take the canvas and flip it upside down. When I place the stretcher strips on top of it, I'm going to make sure that little roll edge is facing the canvas. center it the best that I can and make sure I have as much canvas on each side so I can fold it over the stretcher strips. The next steps are the same for if you're stretching raw canvas or, in this case, a canvas that's already been painted on. You work from the middle of either side and you put a staple. Press down on the staple gun to make sure that it goes in deep, and you're going to work from opposite sides. So one on the top, one on the bottom, one on the side, one on the opposite side. And you're going to keep on working around the canvas in this fashion.
Helps make the canvas be stretched evenly over the stretcher strips and allows the weave of the canvas to be evenly pulled.
After you have your initial 4 staples in, you're going to do 1 staple on either side of that, approximately 4 fingers apart. As you work around the canvas, you'll be stretching the canvas further. Now, if it's already painted, you can't stretch it that much, but if it's a raw canvas, you can really grab the edge of the canvas and pull it tight and stretch it and then staple. I just want to recap this super important step. You want to staple opposite sides always. So then the top and then the bottom, the left and then the right. After you have your initial staples in the center of each, you're going to put 1 on the either side of those staples. And you'll continue that process of going top, bottom, side, side, left, right, until you get close to the corner. Keep on stapling until you get approximately 1 hand width away from the corners on all 4 sides. Folding the corners on a already painted canvas can be a little tough because it's stiff. If you've ever folded hospital corners on sheets, it's a similar way, and you basically are folding 2 triangles and trying to get those angles folded and even and as flat as possible.
You might have to put a few extra staples in the corner, but you know you've done it right when the corner aligns evenly.
And here it is, all stretched. Now when you're stretching a pre-painted canvas, it's not going to be as tight as when you're stretching raw canvas that's going to be primed. Now let me show you a little bit more about that.
Here's a slightly smaller canvas. This is raw cotton canvas that's already been stretched around the sides.
Now, like I said, the process of stapling the sides is the same. When you get kind of close to the corners, make sure you're pulling really, really tight. Your fingers might hurt a little bit, but you really want to get that canvas as tight as possible. Work around all the sides, pull, 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 and then it comes to doing the corners. When you're doing the corners on raw canvas, fold over and tuck in 1 corner like this, and you want to try to get it to align right on the corner of the stretcher strips and make that little dent in there. And you pull it out so it goes right to the tippy corner. Just mess with it a little bit till you get it right. And then you fold it over when you get the little triangles all aligned. When it lays flat, pull it as tight as you can and put in a couple staples and just make sure it's all aligned nice and neat.
Next, we're ready to prime our canvas.
prime your canvas, you want to use gesso. Gesso is a protector of your canvas. You may need to mix it up when you open it because in this case you can see how it separates. So just give it a good mix and it's ready to go.
Now your canvas should be fairly taut at this point, but if it's not, if it's a little saggy, I have a tip for you. Apply a lot of water with your first layer of gesso. Gesso is that primer that you put on that turns it all white. The water goes into the fibers of the canvas and tightens it up, and it will be amazing. Now it's helpful if you have, some extra hands. I pulled in my daughter who loves to prime canvas. Best investment in having kids ever. And we just apply it on. We're going to do 3 coats and just listen to the sound. And that's after the first coat.
Once the first coat dries, I like to add 2 or 3 more coats on top of it, depending on how smooth of a surface I like. You want to make sure your strokes are horizontal and vertical, going along the grain and the weave of the canvas. Don't forget to prime the sides of your canvas as you go along. You can go over the coats of gesso with a very fine grained sandpaper in order to get an even smoother surface. Now your canvas should be extra smooth and tight and should sound like a drum when you tap it. And you're ready to do an underpainting or directly paint on your gesso.